So it is week 3 of the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, or at least our channel continuing to follow the Shohei sweepstakes. And we have 2 more reports coming out. So Daniel Kramer of MLB.com says the Seattle Mariners will not be in pursuit of the two-way superstar. Meanwhile, other reports are saying that the Cubs plan to send out a very lucrative offer for Shohei's services. Kyle, do either of these reports change kind of like what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks? I know you've been talking about the Cubs and you were surprised that they were not putting out these kinds of reports. What do you make of them finally getting into the race?
Here you go, Chicago. It was about damn time. I've been waiting for you. This whole time we're hearing about Braves and Texas Rangers being seriously interested, which, by the way, the other interesting part is that Rangers rumor is really gaining steam on like them trying to go get Ohtani. But man, I was waiting for you, Chicago. I was like, if we have this kind of big level free agent where you've got the Braves jumping in and you've got Boston wanting to show interest, I was like, where are the Cubs, man? The Cubs are perfect to just say we're going to throw a shit ton of money at a free agent and then not engage later on. Chicago is not going to end up with Shohei Ohtani. I know that this is a video and videos last forever, but I feel pretty confident saying the Cubs are not going to end up with Shohei Ohtani at the end of this. Although, I don't know, if money's not an issue for them, then maybe that changes their math a little bit. I know they just reset the managerial market by giving Craig Counsell $8 million a year, which was like, I think $2 million more than the next closest manager or something like that. So it seems like they're in that stupid money market. And obviously, it seems like they're going to move on from Cody Bellinger, which is an interesting choice. Maybe he ends up coming back, but I think they're saying for what Bellinger's production is, it's a little rich for their blood. So I don't know exactly what the plan is with them there. I think they'll get in on Yamamoto coming over from Japan as potentially a top-end starting pitcher, but I don't think the Cubs are going to end up with Ohtani. But I was shocked that they didn't make their name known that they were players in this game before, because the Cubs were the classic team that's like, the Dodgers are going to offer 500 million, the Rangers are going to offer 525, and the Cubs are going to come in and say, we are going to make a serious pursuit for Shohei Ohtani while only offering him $400 million. That seems like a classic Cubs game to play.
Now, Daniel Kramer, like in his rationale for the Seattle Mariners not being involved, he just points to a couple things of how much it's going to cost. Basically, the team shouldn't allocate all their money towards one player, and they just basically downplays it as Ohtani might not just be that interested in the Mariners overall. Now, the Mariners have been a fun team, and they were getting into that AL West race towards the end. Unfortunately, they just kind of ran out of steam, but they got really hot at one point in the season. Like, I want to say August, they were really cruising. Julio Rodriguez really found his stride. They're a fun team. Hey, they got the Trident, but the Mariners not being involved, you threw their name out, at least as one of the West Coast teams. We know that Shohei has an interest in the West Coast. If you're a fan of the Mariners, should you be disappointed that all these teams are talking about how we're getting in on Shohei, but our team is talking about how they're not getting in on Shohei?
The Mariners one is interesting because Jerry DiPoto is a weird guy. That's the best thing I can say about him. He's got a very unique philosophy about roster construction and opportunity that presents itself, but I wouldn't feel totally discouraged that you're out on Shohei Ohtani. I mean, Shohei Ohtani would be awesome to have for the Mariners. There's obviously the connection to Ichiro and the Japanese community in and around Seattle. But I wouldn't be totally discouraged that you're not going all in on Shohei Ohtani. Like, the Mariners have a really strong young team. They're going to add pieces in the periphery. Maybe they have to make some improvements to the pitching staff. But just because you're not in the market for Shohei Ohtani doesn't mean that you're not going to have a competitive team, right? This isn't the San Francisco Giants where you're looking up and you're like, well, we really need a top-end star because the rest of our team is kind of mid and guys that have replacements. Like, no, the Mariners have their quote unquote Shohei Ohtani. The Julio Rodriguez is that dude. Like, Julio Rodriguez is that guy that can propel the franchise with the support that they've given him over the last couple of years. Now, obviously, they missed the playoffs this last year, and that felt like a disappointment. Eugenio Suarez didn't quite have the same season that he did his first year in Seattle when they broke the playoff curse. And also, there's myriad of factors for why the Mariners didn't get into the playoffs this year as compared to last year. But just because they're out on Shohei Ohtani doesn't mean this is the end of the world for the Mariners.
So NY Post has some betting odds, the current Vegas betting odds for Shohei's location. The Dodgers are still number one. Now, it should be interesting. The two teams we're talking about here, the Cubs and the Mariners, are on this list. The Cubs are number two, actually, at plus 350, while the Mariners at plus 1200. So it's interesting that the Cubs have actually flown up the charts and passed up the Giants and passed up the Rangers. The Rangers actually sit behind both New York teams on the current betting odds. The Mets are plus 800, the Yankees plus 800 as well. They're actually dead even. Those are a couple teams that we haven't really talked about much, the Mets and Yankees respectively. We just kind of figured that they really weren't in a position where it seemed like favorable, plus the discounting of the Eastern time zone. Now, I would say if you're Shohei's agent, great job getting the East Coast teams involved. You kind of limited yourself when you said, we're only going to go with the West Coast teams, because as far as driving up the valuation, especially because this is a tough offseason too. With Shohei having the elbow injury, you're not going to get pitching Shohei like you expected to right out the gate. Now, I know eventually you'll get your two-way superstar back. We talked about Shohei potentially coming out of the bullpen upon his return as opposed to being a starter. Maybe it will be less taxing on his arm as he comes off his second UCL tear. But that does hurt the value, because at one point, obviously with Shohei, we're talking about a $700 million contract. Could this be the first billion-dollar player in the MLB? Crazy stats like that was getting thrown out. But now that he's relegated to just being a hitter for at least the first year, maybe year and a half of his deal, we've seen that number tend to run down, at least closer to the $400 million range. What do you think of this current betting odd list? Are you surprised the Cubs went up to 2 over the Giants and the Rangers?
The Rangers one is surprising because it does feel like there is some juice to the rumors of going to Texas. But I think any team besides Dodgers and Texas feels like it could be like anyone. Like we don't know yet. He hasn't gone through the meetings. He hasn't talked to any of these teams yet. He hasn't really gotten offers on the table except for whispers from the agents.
That's another report we didn't address, that he put it out there, or at least his team put it out there, that he would hold it against teams if any of their meetings got leaked to the media. How do you think that affects like some of the teams in bigger markets where it's a lot harder to hide if a player is visiting your facilities?
Gonna happen, dude. Like it's just too much information and access for that to happen, dude. Like people are gonna know when you're meeting with teams. And by the way, call his bluff on that one. Like, come on. I was gonna sign this $500 million contract with the Texas Rangers, but now that they've leaked out that they've offered a $500 million contract, well, now I'm gonna go take the $450 million offer with the Giants. Like, no. Call his bluff on that. There's some things you just can't control, my guy. Maybe you'll be able to snoop around and be secretive, but it's just way too much effort for something that's way out of your control. I understand saying that, but like it only means but so much. In terms of the betting odd thing, like even the Giants are in a precarious position because they're going to have to either offer more money than the Dodgers, which we talked about last week. Like, in what world is there a player the Dodgers have been wanting for 2 years that they're going to get outbid by the San Francisco Giants of all teams? Like, that's probably not going to happen. And you know what? Maybe if you're in Shohei's camp, you get a bidding war between the Dodgers and Giants. Who knows? Maybe that's the game plan going into the meetings. But like, other than Texas and the Dodgers, I feel like anyone could slide in as like the third or the fourth highest odd team to try and go after Shohei Ohtani. Because look, the meetings can change it. If you really want to commit resources, even though you have a team that hasn't made the playoffs. I know the Giants made the playoffs in 2021, but say the Cubs and Giants, who both have made one playoff appearance in 5 years, or Boston, who's made one playoff appearance in 4 years. Like, if you want to be that team that invests all those resources, despite the fact you don't have a championship ready roster, by all means, be my guest, get in that game. But outside of the Dodgers and the Rangers, I think anyone could get involved. That doesn't mean they're going to end up landing Ohtani, but they could be the next team with a chance to get him.
How disappointing would it be after all this hoopla, if he just ended up with the Los Angeles Angels at plus 1,800 odds?
What are the Angels doing right now? I'm very curious because, like, we just haven't heard from them in this entire Ohtani sweepstakes. They're just like, "Hi, we're
Yeah,
here."
I think they just accepted and know their wrongs, their failures in his organization, and decided just to back off. At least it feels like that, from the sense that they're not even putting it out there that we're trying to resign Shohei Ohtani. Like, after all
You
this
could have.
run around to not trade him at the deadline, when they could have at least got some assets for him, for them to not even make an honest attempt to re-sign him is kind of crazy.
the the sentence you just said could have ended at trying. The Angels aren't even trying to show you that they are trying. They're not going to sign any major free agents. There's talks that Mike Trout is on the trade block if they can get the right offer for him. Like, they're not even trying to compete, but they're also not committing to a full-scale teardown at this point. They're just kind of floating along and hoping they fall ass backwards into something good, which I don't think is going to happen given the Angels' track record at this
No, it
point.
will
So,
happen. They'll draft the next superstar, and we'll be having these same discussions 5 to 10 years from now.
yeah, that's the sad reality of this whole situation. Who knows? Maybe Hunter Renfroe has a breakout season for them. Maybe that's the solution to solve their problems. They hired Ron Washington. That's a thing that happened. The first coaching staff with 4 African American coaches. That's something. I don't know what they're just kind of coasting through this whole thing, right? The Angels aren't even talking about meeting with Ohtani. They're not even like interested. He wasn't even in the team photo at the end of the season. They had like a dummy get in there so that they could like Photoshop his face on the team photo. Like,
It got weird there towards
man,
the
the
end.
Angels are, yeah, yeah. And then once the elbow injury happened, he was out of there. He was out of there and not coming back. And the whole thing is done there. And who knows? Maybe Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on the Dodgers will be the game that works out for for them to get all of the prospects that will turn around this rebuild the same way that Washington got all those prospects for Juan Soto and Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. Maybe that'll be the solution to clear the Angels' woes and start turn over a new leaf for that franchise, is by sending Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers.
All right, guys. Well, we have 2 more reports about teams in and out on Shohei Ohtani, update and betting odds. Where do you think Ohtani lands? Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our social medias from Juju and Kyle. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you next time.